Hey, it's Norm from Tested.com. I'm joined once again by Phil Tippett. How you doing, Phil?
Fine.
You guys know Phil Tippett, a special effects legend working on films such as Jurassic Park, Robocop, Star Wars. You may have heard of that. Well, we're here at Tippett Studio to talk about Robocop 2's Cain robot, because you have the original, the one-to-one. So, Phil, can you talk about the design of Cain and when the director came to you to design bring it to life in the movie? How did you go about it?
Well, Irvin Kershner came on very late on the project, kind of at the last minute. And so when we started thinking about the design for this thing, Craig Hayes, who actually designed and figured out the construction of this incredibly elaborate, is probably the most elaborate stop motion puppet that's ever been made. He was kind of pissed off from Robocop.
From the first one?
From the first one. He also designed the Ed 209.
Yeah.
And it didn't take more than like 6 months before vinyl Japanese kits came out of the Ed 209.
Right.
And so Craig was unhappy because it was the design was very simple and very easy to duplicate. So his intention in whatever direction we were going to do was to do the most complicated thing in the world that nobody could ever possibly duplicate.
No bootlegs, no crappy model kits.
No one in their right mind would try and reproduce
in their right
this.
mind. Good point. Right.
But subsequently, I saw in the hardware store up here there was like a really nice little die-cast version of the guy that was pretty darn close. But the intention was to come up with a Ed 209 was supposed to be kind of a doofus, an idiot design, like the Cadillac of stupid robots. So Ed was played more for intimidation and for comedy. He had he was kind of like this comic Caliban character. This guy, the Cain puppet, is like is it a cyborg? I don't know.
He's a human brain, yeah.
So the character Cain, the evil guy, gets obliterated by Robocop, and his brain gets put inside of this thing. And so the idea was to just have like kind of a super amped up like bodybuilder, kind of an impression. So something that had like a very big chest, and it was very menacing, very strong. And it was designed with all number. It was, we call it the Swiss Army knife, because attached to his shoulders were at this point here there was a cannon that he had. He has a machine gun on this arm and like a grasping claw. This has like a big punching thing that can extend and knock things off. And he's got like all these. He's got a welding rig and he's got another claw here. And so when he opens up, there's just thump, 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 all the stuff that comes out of him. And it was again the most elaborate and complicated stop motion puppet. It was a really hard puppet to animate. And
you guys decided to make a one-to-one because you needed to have those shots of Peter Weller or a stunt double
we needed
flopping around, grabbing his brain.
Yep.
And this is not one-to-one. This is the original shooting.
This is what we and we designed it in such a way that it could be puppeteered. So when we were on the set, it could actually the arms could somewhat move, and it was we had it attached to a pneumatic rig or hydraulic rig, so we could could be controlled by these controlling mechanisms, so we could get some action out of it. Things were like really quite heavy.
Wow.
But it was only built from the waist up.
There's no feet.
No, we only used it for the close-ups of Peter Weller on the back, putting his hand down and grabbing the brain out.
You can see the wires in here that's supposed to represent all that circuitry, and Cain's brain lives in there. Well, there you go. That's a little piece of movie history right there. Awesome. So you mentioned that you also had to build a bunch of stop-motion maquettes. And this life-size one, it's been in your shop for years. It's been living here, as well as the full-size Ed 209. People are going to get a chance to see this. You're working with Chronicles Collectibles, and it'll be at Comic-Con. So if you're at Comic-Con, check out the Toonami booth. This will be there. Take photos with it. But you also have the stop-motion maquettes. And can we check those out as well?
Yes, we can.
All right, let's go check those out. All right, Phil, so we have both some of the arms, two of the arms of Cain in front of us, as well as one of the Go Motion maquettes. And your partner in the production of this, Craig, built this. Can you talk a little bit about that building process?
Well, it was a team that really was responsible for putting it together. I mean, Craig was the designer and had a total concept of how all of this was going to be going together, but there was a whole crew of model makers that were in here under his direction. And then the trick with this thing was most stop motion puppets have a articulated ball and socket skeleton that is inside like a rubber facade.
Like King Kong.
Like King Kong or Mighty Joe Young or the Cyclops from Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. This needed to have exposed armature parts that actually worked and that were part of the design. And that team was led by Tom Sanamon, who's a master stop motion animation armature maker, and Blair Clark was his assistant. And they spent months and months and months machining this under Craig's direction. So we had, at one point in time, we had 20 stop motion setups going. This was in this main building. We had another big building with a lot more stuff going on with high-speed miniatures and all of that kind of stuff. And so we'd have setups that were being set up and lit and being prepared, and then the animators would be animating on their setups, and then they'd swap out and they'd go over. So it was a really big show. It was probably the biggest stop motion show since like Mighty Joe Young, and just in terms of the stuff. And
then in directing that animation, what were the things you did to make Cain, and you and your team of animators, to make Cain move realistically? Like, it's not moving like an animal, or did you want to make him move like an animal?
No, we shot quite a bit of reference with machines and robotics, just to get a sense of how the things moved. What's important is to really try and understand the center of gravity and weight. Unlike say like a traditional animation show like Disney or Pixar, where the world is completely imaginary, we are locked into the background plates that we shoot live action wise, and so everything needs to live in that world. So what's really important to do is to estimate, for live creatures we call it water weight, what the water weight of the creature is. In this case, he has no water, so we had to imagine it in terms of how many pounds it is, and so conceptually we could get a handle on it. I don't even remember what the weight we came up with.
So those background plates are shot first, and then you choreograph the movements?
I'll go out on location. I'd work with Kirshner and Frank on developing the scenes, and then we go out and we shoot the backgrounds based on the storyboards, and then once those have been processed, back in the day, everything was done photographically. So we had 8 per VistaVision big format background plates that we used, and that allowed for a much better picture integration.
And then for a 24 frame per second film, how many shots of stop motion for like a second? Is it matching 24?
It's 24, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
add a little blur?
For some of the stuff we added blur. Yeah, we put them on motion control rigs. Sometimes, depending upon what you were seeing, we'd even like jiggle these things a little bit, but it was kind of contingent on the scene. But all of these things are built to be literally, the movements for a lot of this stuff would be like this, very
tiny,
very incremental, unless you were into like a very fast action.
And the scenario the set has to be really controlled. The lighting, and this can't adjust at all. You have reference points, so from shot to shot.
Well, we were very careful on the set to make sure that all of the actors really knew their eye lines. So we have like a big cardboard cutout of this guy that we drag around on the set.
Awesome. Where does that live? Is it lost in history?
I think it got thrown in the dumpster.
So how was animating the full 1-to-1 size Cain different from the stop motion?
Well, it was puppeteered in a live action context. There were places where you could put like these metal rods, and the puppeteers could move these things around.
Okay.
And then there was a big hydraulic rig that designer Mike Steffi built, and it was for 2 parts. It was to put the full-scale 1/2 Cain on to move around, but it also had a special rig so that Peter Weller's stunt double could get in it and appear to be like thrashed around.
That sounds scary because that thing's heavy.
It was scary, and the stunt guy was, after he went through, being thrashed around with this thing, he said it was like one of the worst stunts that he did. I mean, he was really sore, because literally, it's like if you see someone that gets hit by an automobile or something like that, they immediately turn into like a rag doll. But this guy was like limited because he had this big metal suit on, so he was being thrown around and then stopped, on the spot. So it was pretty tough. One other anecdote was that there is a shot in the movie that I actually thought was kind of daring, which was there's a scene where the female protagonist, I forget her name, is being stalked by Cain, her ex-boyfriend. She has betrayed him. And so Cain's gonna ice her. And he reaches in with this hand and snaps her neck and throws her away. And so I had a rig built, and we shot this on the set with the whole movie crew. So I had this actress remain as still as she could, like looking up, and I stop motion animated this hand coming in, like that, and then grabbing her head and neck and putting this around it, animating that around it, and then animating this, like beginning to do the neck snap. And I kept doing it, and this girl was so limber that her head, I mean, I could almost go upside down. Yeah, are you okay? Yeah, okay. And then we would match that into cut that directly with a stop motion wider shot of him lifting her up.
Great. And so you actually did some stop motion animation with the one-to-one piece as well. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Phil, for sharing with us this beloved piece of movie history. It is Robocop 2, Cain. We love this stuff. Thank you so much. I'm Norm from Tested Wolf. More from Tippett Studio on the site. And again, the one-to-one size Cain, you can check it out at Comic-Con. I'm sure people posted photos if you can't make it, but we'll be there as well. See you guys.